Welcome to Football Conspiracies.
I'm Jared Cole.
And I'm Jared Rabinovich.
This week's episode, Magnetic Glove Theory, a follow-up.
So after last week's episode, I went down a bit of a rabbit hole, as I tend to do, and I looked back at some of the research that ended up on the cutting room floor last week, right?
Yeah, like the stuff that wasn't quite good enough to make the episode, or the stuff that didn't quite fit the story we were telling.
It was mostly stuff that I thought wasn't, quite fitting for the episode at first, but upon looking back at it, I pretty quickly decided that this material was something that our audience would like. Would deserve to hear. The craziness of this theory and the willingness of so many chronically online people to spend their time adding to it has turned the research behind magnetic glove theory in the NFL into a bona fide treasure trove for this podcast.
Yeah, like you were saying last week how there was a lot of stuff there that because it's just been going on and you wanted to look back at where it began, but now you want to see kind of where it's going and where it's. Yeah.
I think that's actually a very good way to suffice this, right? I mean, last week's episode was really an intro to this theory. We looked at the history behind it, how I think we got from point A to point B, where we are now. But this is really just chock full of evidence, this episode. It's going to be a lot of melted theory. And if you guys enjoyed my ranting about Jake the Asshole Official's TikTok last episode, then you're really going to enjoy this one. Obviously, last week, I went pretty into depth to explain the magnetic glove theory and some of my suspicions as to why it exists to begin with. Because of this, I will not be spending time breaking down the foundations of the theory at the beginning of this episode, like I usually would. If you haven't listened yet, or you're finding yourself a little lost, I encourage you to go back and listen to last week's episode first so you can have the complete context for today's episode.
Although, let's be real here, who's starting on a follow-up?
You'd be surprised.
Really?
Man.
If you're starting on this follow-up, let us know. Please send us an email or hit us up.
Yeah, actually, please do.
Because we're interested.
I definitely am. And I definitely think there's going to be some people who are actually interested in this episode and less so in the last one, just because this is really the meat of the theory. And if you have any sort of basis of knowing about the foundation of it before this is going to be a lot more entertaining for those folk, I believe.
Okay.
Because of this, we're skipping ahead into the meat and potatoes of this episode. We're going to skip right to those melted theories that we all love so much. So without further ado, let's hop right into the stew.
It's so clever.
I appreciate it. Thank you. I thought long and hard. I want someone to notice.
Yes, don't worry.
For our first piece of quote-unquote proof today, we're going to be discussing a video posted to TikTok.
I don't think you should be putting the word proof in quotations, because I feel like these are going to be actual legitimate cases that we have to take seriously.
Well, let's expound on this a little bit, and we'll see how you feel in a little bit. I think this specific TikTok will serve as a good bridge between this and last week's episode, as this TikTok brings up a lot of the same pieces of evidence that are brought forward by last week's brave researchers, namely Jake the Asshole Official. This video was posted by a user, Hangtime NFL, on April 9th, 2024. Before we watch this video, I also think it is important to mention that Hangtime NFL's profile picture on TikTok is a thirst trap photo of Livy Dunn.
Oh.
Yeah, no, this is the sort of creator that we're looking at right now.
Yeah, that's a reliable source.
Exactly, and it doesn't really add anything to this theory, of course, but I think it speaks to the character of the people we're dealing with.
Yeah, I would say it adds to the story because it adds to the characters.
Yeah, that's totally fair.
Yeah.
So let's listen into this video now.
We're saying that the NFL uses magnets in balls and gloves, and the video evidence is pretty convincing. Because after this interception last year, the ball got stuck to Jalen Petre's hand, and it was so bad he literally had to take off his glove. So what if this was some sort of malfunction between the chips in the gloves and the balls? There is just no way there's any substance that is that sticky, and there is a lot more evidence that other humans, not me, I want to be specific about that, are talking about. Like how the computer chips that the NFL uses to track and collect game data is actually the chief component in how the NFL manipulates game outcomes by turning those chips into electromagnets, which would make it possible for balls to be altered in-game by well-placed magnets. Like, for example, a couple on the goalpost to help send a football flying left or right. The Ultimate Reception gloves literally advertise the fact that the smallest, strongest magnets make it super easy for the ball to be gripped and caught. And these things have been around for a long time, since we've got quotes from guys like Hakeem Nicks and John Madden back in the day about how you don't even need to think about catching the ball. The catches players were making caused people to really test the limits of what these gloves can do, and it turns out it was quite a lot, because a group of high school football players all looked like a prime OBJ, while they also gave the gloves to a random older guy playing in a street band, and he was able to somehow magnetically suck the ball right into his hand.
So what do you think of that one, J. Cole?
I think that this guy might be onto something, you know?
Well, I'm not so sure myself.
Wait, what do you mean? He showed the exact same news interview that we saw last episode, and he showed the exact same missed field goal that we saw last episode. Therefore, this new proof he's bringing must be true.
Thank you for adding that context, because that's exactly what I was about to say to the viewers who didn't get to see the visuals. It's the exact same bullshit that we were talking about last week. And that's why I think this is such a good place to start. I also think this is a good place to start because it speaks to a lot of the same proofs we discussed last week, notably the reference made to the Ultimate Reception magnetic gloves, which we discussed on the previous episode. I think I did a pretty good job last week of showing how silly this theory is. And let me just break down the logic of this theory, because I think it goes something like this. We can all agree, because of the existence of the Ultimate Reception magnetic gloves, that magnetic footballs and football gloves do in fact exist. We can also agree that the NFL consistently has catches that appear near impossible to catch, or kicks that come shockingly close to the gridirons, sometimes even hitting them. Well, if these improbable moments occur so frequently, and we know these magnetic footballs exist, the simplest explanation would be that the NFL is using these in order to ensure outcomes they would prefer and avoid outcomes they would rather avoid. Does that make sense?
Perfect sense. That's exactly it.
And as far as I'm concerned, this is one of the most brutal butcherings of Occam's razor I have ever witnessed. For those who don't know what Occam's razor is, it's the theory put forward by a Greek philosopher, Occam, that the simplest explanation is usually the right one. And as far as I'm concerned, the fact that these guys are looking at this as the most simple explanation is bananas.
Yeah, it's kind of wild that they went like, oh, it's so simple that they're using magnets instead of it's so simple that they're not using magnets.
Exactly. Could not agree more. Just because you can't catch a ball one-handed while being tackled by a 300-pound man does not mean that others cannot. And just because this seems like an impossible skill to attain, that does not mean the simplest explanation is that it isn't real. Counterintuitively, at least when it comes to these theorists' intuitions, I think it is far more simple that not every NFL player and coach is in on some grand conspiracy, and that these guys are just incredibly good at catching footballs.
Yeah, I would also like to point out that in that TikTok when he said that a player had a malfunction and he had to run away, the player claimed, I remember seeing this because the player claimed that was his celly. Like, that he was so good at football that, like, the ball stuck to his hand.
It's funny that you bring that up, because that's exactly what we're getting into now.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, like, that's my favorite piece of so-called evidence cited in this video. Just seeing Jalen Petre's catch and his hand being stuck to the ball after catching an interception. First of all, he tries to refute this by saying that there are no substances that sticky. First of all, there are absolutely substances that are this sticky. Notably, Stickum.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah, which is a now banned substance in the NFL that we discussed in last week's episode. Second of all, a magnet that is this strong that Petre literally couldn't pry the ball out of his hand would likely be so strong that it would interfere with other things in the stadium.
I don't know about other things in the stadium. When magnets are closer together, obviously the attraction is greater than if it's further away.
I completely agree, but anecdotally, think about when you have used magnets before. Have you ever seen a magnet other than like an industrial magnet in a lab or something like that is so strong you literally couldn't pull it apart?
I would say the thing is, though, magnets that are usually that strong are heavy.
And big.
Yeah, and like big.
Not tiny
not
and
like,
in a glove.
Not like glove size.
Light enough that they could fit in a football and still be thrown effectively.
Yes, exactly.
It's just silly all over. And third of all, and to me this is the best piece of evidence as to why this is complete bullshit, this seems like a pretty obvious reference to the 2000 film starring Keanu Reeves, The Replacements.
I've never seen that movie.
I actually haven't either, but a lot of people brought this up in forums I was looking at. At some point in the movie, a player is told to use Stickum to catch a ball. Afterwards, he's unable to get the ball out of his hand, and he begins shaking his hand and fails to dislodge the ball. For those who didn't see the video, this is exactly what Petrie is doing in it.
Yeah, if that's what you're saying is in the movie, then it looks like he was just recreating the movie, which no NFL player has ever recreated a movie for a celly, so...
Yeah, exactly. Like,
it's very original by him.
Yeah, it's like, don't get me wrong, it's a pretty good celly.
Yeah,
I
that
appreciate
too.
it.
Like, that's sick. Like,
For
I'm
real.
so good it's stock.
Exactly.
Like, that's hard.
But in my mind, so obviously a reference to this movie.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's a very clear reference then.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's probably the biggest piece of evidence to just absolutely start disregarding this video and moving on from Hang Time NFL's theories. I just think it was a little bit weak, if you ask me. The next video we'll be reviewing is a YouTube video titled NFL Receivers Use Magnetic Gloves? By Jack Sempe. His first piece of evidence is a clip of a player catching a ball where Jack Sempe claims the player's gloves snap onto the ball in an unnatural way, presumably because of the magnets in his gloves. J. Cole and I will now watch this video so he can give you his first impressions of this catch.
Yeah, so my initial reaction is that he made a catch. The contested catch, too. Like, it was a nice catch, but I mean, that's what you're going with?
Exactly. Like, this is exactly what I wrote down here is, personally, it looks like a completely normal catch to me.
Yeah, I don't know what he's talking about with that one.
Yeah, I would have never thought twice about this if I saw it on TV.
No.
And after watching it in slow-mo tens of times, I remain completely unconvinced.
Yeah, no, I saw that in slow-mo 3 times, and it looked like a normal person catching a football. Well, an NFL player catching a football.
Far from a normal person,
yeah, very
but a
far.
person catching a football.
Yes, very much an NFL player catching a football.
Just a normal catch, nothing crazy.
Yeah. Well, it was double coverage. He did make a good play, I will say.
Fine, it was a crazy catch. Nothing abnormal happened.
Yes, nothing abnormal about it.
The next minute and a half of this 3-minute video is an insert of the Ultimate Reception promo video.
Oh, of course it is. Why wouldn't they throw this promo video into a TikTok?
Of course, this is identical to what we saw Jake the Asshole Official do in his video, which we discussed last week. I also believe this further cements my theory that the origin of the magnetic glove conspiracy can be directly rooted back to the Ultimate Reception product.
I was actually thinking about it too. I think that's where, like, the theory popularized.
Yes.
I think, like, it was, like, a held belief amongst certain NFL fans, and until what's it called? Immaculate Reception?
Ultimate Reception.
Until Ultimate Reception came around, people didn't have, like, the actual proof that the product was there. And now that they have the product, they can say, like, oh, it's basically this.
That's entirely possible. I personally, in my research, have not come across anything that predates the Ultimate Reception promo video. And if anyone has anything to show that, please send it over my way. I'd love to look at it.
I would think, like, maybe an NFL player is the one who came up with this product. Maybe he heard through his time as an NFL player, like, oh, you're using magnetic gloves out there? And
My boy was a
like,
long snapper.
Yeah, well, you never know.
You never know, I guess. Those long snappers need those magnetic gloves.
Well, those punters need those magnetic gloves.
I guess you're right. I can give you that.
How many times has, like, a team gone for, like, the extra point or a field goal and the placeholder just drops the ball?
Pretty often.
Yeah, but also if they had magnetic gloves, then their hand would be stuck on the side. And then
Exactly. You might think that they'll be stuck in a Jalen Petrie sort of situation.
They go flying with the ball through the,
So
through the
good.
uprights.
So good. Jack Sempe ends this video by making a broad claim that anytime you see a crazy catch, that you should think about this.
I mean, when I saw that Garrett Wilson catch from Aaron Rodgers, that was like fucking Air Jordan up there, like...
Yeah, it was an insane catch.
Magnets.
But when I watched it, nowhere in my mind did I go, that was magnets. Even though I literally wrote 2 episodes of a podcast about magnetic gloves between these, like, with this game falling in between them.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's been on my mind.
Yeah.
Jack Senpai also mentioned that he wanted to prove his theory by showing just this one catch, is something that he mentioned at the end of the video. This, to me, can mean one of two things. The first being that there is such insubstantial evidence for this theory that Senpai was unable to track anything down but this one lackluster video. Or two, that Senpai is so supremely lazy and wanting for views that he chose to make a video that is almost entirely made up of stolen content, with the rest being made up of replays of the same not-so-nefarious catch. My best bet is it's some sort of combination of these two factors.
I mean, there are people online who just, like, repost stuff to try and get money.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, I wouldn't put it past them.
This is slightly higher effort than just reposting something for money, but it's not much above that.
No. Okay.
These two videos are, at least in my opinion, quite unconvincing. There seems to be little passion in the creation of them, and they provide little, if any, substantive evidence. That does not mean, however, that every magnetic glove theorist is lazy. One video I found from YouTuber DracoTunes2 titled The Art of Magnetic Gloves and Footballs in the NFL, in brackets 100% proof. This video is anything but lazy.
Well, I mean, it's 100% proof.
I guess you're right. He's gotta come with the big guns if he's saying 100%.
Yeah, it's only 50% ABV, though.
So a quick note on this creator. This guy has released many NFL conspiracy videos that are quite lengthy and full of some juicy content. We will absolutely be revisiting this in the near future. This is a 10-minute video that lays out a full theory for the case and includes tons of evidence, which is annotated, actually. This is not an ideal video for an audio format such as this podcast, as the video is almost entirely text-based, which is a classic conspiracy video format. But I will do my best to explain to the audience exactly what's going on in this video. Now let's get into it. It starts with an explanation about grip gloves, which is frankly absurd. Here is an excerpt from that text.
These gloves contain a small magnetic field that works with the ball, which has a small frequency chip that senses your hands and creates a striking effect.
Yeah, I mean, well, I'm certainly not a scientist and cannot use any real expertise to disprove this. This reeks of bullshit.
I mean, I wonder what frequency your hands give off.
And like a small magnetic field,
that's quite interesting.
A lot of conspiracy theorists I've noticed will just throw in scientific
Words
terms
and then confuse the layman.
Yeah, the idea is to make it sound like you're smart and to make it complicated enough that people aren't willing to do further research.
Yeah.
And I think this is very clearly what he's trying to do here.
Oh, 100%.
Because I could be wrong. This seems pretty pseudoscientific, though.
Nah, I don't know.
I said I could be wrong. One fact I absolutely can attest to, though, is that NFL's players' gloves do not have chips in them, like he says. The chips that NFL players have on their body are in their shoulder pads.
I was actually thinking about this, too. What if they don't disclose what the chips are that are in the gloves? Like, we know about the RFID tags because those do stat tracking, and that's the cover for how they get the magnets in the balls. But what if they use a different technology in the gloves that they don't disclose, and that's why the ball comes to them, and that's why that doesn't get picked up when they do the RFID tags?
If you buy into this theory, that's absolutely the case. But there's pretty much no evidence that these gloves that these players throw out after every single game, sometimes several times a game, have microchips in them. Think about how expensive that would be.
What if they take the microchip out and then put it in a new glove?
You think you might notice that happening like halfway between the game?
Well, they're switching gloves. They don't just throw them in the garbage. I'm sure they go to an equipment manager and they say, get me a new pair of gloves and here are my old gloves. And the equipment manager does all the shady shit and the player doesn't need to.
I'll grant you that this is entirely a possibility.
This is fact. I'm going with it.
But,
this is fact.
I mean, our buddy Occam is rolling over in his grave right now.
No, this is facts.
All right. We'll see if you continue to agree with that when we get into a few more of DracoTunes2's beliefs.
Well, so far he's 1 for 1.
I think you might regret that soon. After this introduction, DracoTunes2 then gets into some concrete examples. The first one he shows is a catch by Danny Amendola from 2010. It is undoubtedly a pretty impressive one-hand catch, but here is what Draco Toons 2 has to say about the matter.
When did Ultimate Reception come out?
Ultimate Reception came out a few years after this, but this is just a video from 2010. The actual video that was created was only 3 years ago. So
yeah, but this guy, that means that after the magnetic gloves started to actually become a thing, this guy went through old football looking for the magnetic glove. Like, he was committed.
Oh, absolutely. No, I'm telling you, this is
guy,
committed.
This guy is
100%.
Postal worthy coming.
Oh, absolutely he is, let me tell you. Now we'll get to that quote that Draco Toons 2 has to say about this Danny Amendola catch.
Before we can even talk about the catch, I want to make this clear. Danny Amendola is not the most athletic wide receiver. So for him to leap up with all of his momentum going to his right, this catch is near impossible. The ball is vertical and facing upwards. So how did he maintain control of the ball? Ladies and gentlemen, the ball is stuck to his fingertips because of the magnetic field of the gloves being attracted to the ball.
First things first, Danny Amendola just got fucking cooked. Yeah, that's crazy.
Brutal. Well, I mean, he isn't the most athletic wide receiver.
I agree. But
that's
imagine
not how you need to describe him.
And also imagine Draco Toons 2 saying that about you. Like, come on, that hurts.
That's tough.
That's tough. The second thing is he's bringing back up this magnetic field stuff.
And he's right. It's in the fingertips makes sense. If you have like a bunch of the small things in there and one on the palm too, and so you go up, you can get like a crazy fingertip catch, but then you can also get like the crazy one-handed palm catches.
Once again, in the world where this theory is real, absolutely I agree.
You mean in the reality we all live?
Yeah, me and you might live in different realities. The next clip he presents is a game-winning catch made by a wide receiver on the Cardinals in a game against the Bills, actually. The Cardinals were down by 4 and needed a Hail Mary touchdown in the last seconds to win this game. Well, this catch is, once again, quite impressive. Draco Toons 2's reason for thinking this was a magnetic catch had almost nothing to do with the catch itself and everything to do with the stakes of the catch. It seems he would never have paid attention to this in the first place if it were not a game-winning catch. His proof is pretty much it must be magnetic because they were down 4 and needed a touchdown in the last few seconds, so they turned it on to make this exciting.
Of course, why wouldn't they do that for a Cardinals-Bills regular season game?
This was also like a few years back, so it's not like the Cardinals or the Bills were doing particularly well during this time period.
Yeah, no, they were not.
So, which makes it even less believable as far as I'm concerned. And also, if you're trying to please a fan base, you would please the Bills. They're significantly larger, significantly richer, and have a significantly larger, like a bigger viewing audience to each of their games.
Yeah.
So it makes no sense that you let the Arizona Cardinals take that.
The game.
Exactly.
Yeah, no.
The clout shouldn't be with them if you want more viewers. It should be with the
exactly.
Bills. We're now going to move on to the next clip, which is actually about the Bucks. So we get a Bills and Bucks moment in here. This catch was made by, I know, one of your favorites, Chris Godwin, and also one of the favorites of the podcast now that he came out in that Bucks video that we covered a few episodes ago and said that he does not believe in any conspiracy theories.
Yeah, that's big ups on him for being able to withstand the peer pressure of an NFL locker room.
Exactly, like kind of my king, I'm not going to lie. In this clip, Godwin catches the balls with the tips of his fingers and just manages to hold on. Draco Toons 2 claims this catch should not have been possible as Godwin did not have his thumb on the ball, and it is, quote-unquote, scientifically impossible to catch a ball without your thumb. Negative IQ. That is a horrible point.
Was that like during a game or practice, you said?
This was during a game.
That was during a game.
Yes, we can look at that video now.
I didn't see anything.
Yeah, it looks like it was filmed on a potato.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what kind of replay is this?
Granted, he does say in the video that I understand this is poor quality, but he still uses it as proof.
That is the worst thing I've ever seen. This is what he's trying to...
Watch it a little more up closely and you'll see what you think.
How are you supposed to tell anything from this? He did use his thumb.
First of all, he does use his thumb. Agreed. Absolutely.
And also
agreed.
you can see he's not using magnetic gloves because the ball falls out of his hand and he has to recatch it. Do not slander my boy Chris Godwin.
I knew that you'd come on this side.
Magnetic gloves may be real, but Chris Godwin wasn't using them in that situation.
I knew the moment I saw this that you would all of a sudden change your opinion because Chris Godwin isn't using magnetic gloves. I knew that you were going to come on board.
I didn't believe that there was magnetic gloves in the Bills Cardinals game either.
I guess
His proofs are bad, but his logic is sound.
Oh, I completely agree, but I can make any logic sound, right?
Yeah, no, but that's what I'm saying.
A little ridiculous. Like, I don't know if you know all those, like, syllogisms that are, like, making fun of... syllogisms are A plus B equals C.
Okay.
It's a philosophical thing. So you could be like, all mammals are blue. Dogs are mammals. Therefore, all dogs are blue. Which, the logic is totally there, completely makes sense. You cannot argue with the logic. But you can argue with the fact that dogs just aren't blue.
Yeah.
It's factually incorrect. Just logic doesn't need to be factual. It just needs to be logical. So back to this quote-unquote impossible catch made by Godwin, that the reason it's impossible is because, he didn't use his thumb. First of all, I just want to say that is a patently untrue statement. You can absolutely catch a ball without the use of your thumb. First of all, you could use other body parts, as we've seen NFL players do before. Second of all, you could just catch a ball without the use of your thumb in your hand. Like, so many one-handed catches look like this.
Yeah.
Second of all, in this video, like J. Cole alluded to, you can literally see the ball tip out of Godwin's hands before he regains control. How could this possibly happen if there are magnets in his gloves? It was stuck there, right?
Yeah, it would get stuck. It wouldn't matter the momentum of the ball. It would just stick there.
Flabbergasting stuff to me.
Yeah, crazy.
Like the fact that you watched this 240p video and decided that this must be proof, craziness.
Honestly, that might be too high quality to describe this video.
Yeah, like it's quite literally 4 pixels.
It is, yeah, it is very pixelated.
The next example that he brings up is pretty similar to the previous one, so I'll not get into it. For our purposes, though, it's just important to note that this is the same proof that he applies to the Godwin example, that a catch can't be made without the use of your thumbs. Just 2 examples of the same piece of evidence. Yeah. He then goes on to explain the science behind this. J. Cole, I'll give you one guess as to the source that he cites.
For his science?
Yes. There's only one answer.
Reddit.
Nope. The Ultimate Reception promo video.
Oh, okay. That is scientist.
Yeah, I mean, of course this video could not have been complete without a complete rip of the Ultimate Reception promo video.
Of course,
The next approximately 2 minutes of this video are the Ultimate Reception promo that we have now seen countless times. DracoTunes 2 then gets into the why of his theory. His answer for why the NFL would do this? Simply marketability. I think that is the obvious motive behind why this would exist if it did.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you want teams to miss that final second extra point or that final second field goal to make the narrative for whatever team you want win, or like get that extra Hail Mary catch or whatever, like get that touchdown to be up and lead. But we've seen that they don't care.
No, they don't. They don't. It's like, I cannot think about how many terrible games I've watched of football that no one talks about the non-exciting ones, even though that's like the majority of football games.
I was gonna say, like, I love football, don't get me wrong, but 70% of football games are pretty bad.
I couldn't agree more. Like, how many times have you sat down for a Thursday or Monday night football and been like, wow, what a fucking dud?
Yeah, honestly. Like, quite a few times already this season.
Exactly. And like, just to cap this off, something that just came to my mind. What would the motivation be to have that horrible Super Bowl that the Bucks ended up winning? What would the motivation of that be? What was the score again?
Yeah, when they dominated against the Chiefs. Like, honestly, the Chiefs could have really benefited from magnetic gloves because their receivers couldn't catch shit.
Garbage.
Yeah.
And what would the motivation be to have a Super Bowl, the game that has a plus 65% viewership than the regular NFL? Right?
A 30-second commercial at the Super Bowl is worth more than any other time of the year. Like,
so what would be the motivation for making the most coveted TV spot in the world unentertaining? Like, if you're going to use magnetic gloves in any game,
I wouldn't say that Super Bowl was unentertaining.
For everyone but you and your ilk, it was unentertaining. Let me tell you, I was there.
You were there in Tampa?
No, I fucking wish.
No.
That would have been exciting, I'll tell you that. DracoTunes 2 claims that the league would not be entertaining enough without these catches, only made possible by the use of magnets. Pretty clear motivation. But this is also where he goes supremely off the rails. To quote,
"When people see receivers and DBs making these spectacular catches, more people want to watch their games. Almost like the Odell Beckham effect. All that did was bring people back, and at the end of the day, all of the money went into the pockets of the Zionists."
So this is a problematic position. Well, there are completely fair criticisms to be made of Zionism. It seems beyond evident to me that when Draco Toons 2 uses this word, he is not referring to Zionists. He's referring to Jews.
Yes.
Zionism is often used as a catch-all dog whistle by conspiracists. The use of it here is not a legitimate criticism of the ideology of Zionism. Rather, it is a subtle implication that Jews are the ones in charge of the NFL and entertainment as a whole, a long-held and widely spread conspiracy belief. Many conspiracy theories, when you follow them down the rabbit hole, end up having anti-Semitic roots. So it is unsurprising that this theory somehow relates back to anti-Semitism. What is surprising is the fact that this is the first time this sort of dog whistle has appeared on this podcast.
Damn, bro, I was like following along with you. Your logic was sound, and then you gotta spring this on me, bro. Like,
Remember when I told you you were gonna regret this?
yeah, I mean, his initial logic is sound, but I don't know. I have to eat crow. I have to eat.
You really do. And this is truly the sort of conspiracist who, if he didn't have these like super problematic roots, and I haven't watched the rest of his videos, but if I had to guess, a lot of them are going to be along the lines of, Jews own the media. If he wasn't along those lines, I feel like he'd be a supremely entertaining guy. Like, I would want to watch these videos just for like the entertainment value of it.
Yeah.
But because of this, it makes me reticent to even give him the view I gave him when I was reviewing this video.
Yeah. Damn, we're taking away your apostle status.
Yeah, definitely. But let me tell you, you'll be back. We will definitely be speaking about you again, sir. And we're just going to have a couple of choice quotes from the remainder of the video, just because I think the viewers will enjoy this. There are a handful of typos and grammatical errors in them, but I kept the quotes in their original state so you can get the full authentic effect. This to me is like a small sample of the experiences I have every week when I deep dive into these conspiracy theories. So you'll get to experience my world for 1 second here. Here is the first quote.
It's all about promoting the illusion to the masses that you're watching a real game when in reality you're watching a choreographed game planned out 10 years in advance, and the more people that watch, the more money they can get.
Just to reiterate, that last bit is actually quoted as the more money you can get.
Oh, I just read it like a normal person. I didn't even see that.
No, you have to understand, we're not dealing with a normal person.
No, but like even when I was reading it, I didn't even see the more. It just like my brain just like edited it out.
Yeah, because like brains are good at pattern recognition, and your brain understood that was just obviously abjectly wrong.
That's crazy.
But the reason I add this quote is, I think, pretty clear.
Yeah.
10 years in advance?
That's crazy.
You cannot be telling me that they're
is-
planning 10 years in advance.
Can you imagine trying to get like a 10-year-old or like a 15-year-old or someone to like practice a game that they're not going to be playing for 10 years?
And even if you just write the script, like think about that. That means that like Keegan-Michael Key was in the NFL script writing room when Obama was still in office. That long ago.
Oh my god.
Yeah, like 10 years. That means this season was written in 2014.
Whoa.
We were like in grade 9.
That's
and they
ridiculous.
already knew when your Bucks were going to win that Super Bowl.
That's kind of hype.
Is it?
I don't know.
To think that your team had absolutely no merit. Tom Brady actually is just a regular guy, and this was all played out. He's just a WWE wrestler, essentially.
Yeah, and
Instead of
what's
the greatest
wrong?
athlete of his generation.
Exactly. What's wrong with that?
I guess there's nothing wrong with being a WWE wrestler, don't get me wrong. There is definitely something wrong with lying to the entire world.
Yeah, I mean, 10 years, nothing happened to any of the people who participated for 10 years so that they could all show up for game time, you know?
Yeah, and on top of that, just imagine
many
thinking 10
people?
years in the future. Imagine that. Everything
You
that you
can't.
thought was
You
going to happen
can't.
10 years ago,
You can't.
none of that came to fruition.
Nothing that I thought 10 years ago has happened.
Yeah, like these would truly be the most impressive or like feat of organization Of all time. Of all time.
Okay, but you also got to think, like, how many people would go into this conspiracy, you know? Like, how far does it range? Like, how many people have to be quiet about it, you know?
That's
what
obviously,
I mean.
it's like saying they shoot the flat earth theory too. Like
Yeah.
every pilot and astronaut would have to be in on it.
Same with the moon landing. Like,
It's all the same. I
If
agree.
Russia's gonna like be like, okay, fine, the U.S. made it first. Like, come on, like that's literally who we were racing against, or who
they were racing against. All right, we'll now move on to the next quote.
One sec, I just want to say we as in capitalist versus communists.
We as in of course.
course.
Canada is the beacon of capitalism in the world.
Yes. No, I mean, our Chinese and Russian listeners need to know that.
I guess we do have Chinese and Russian listeners apparently, so
They need to know.
yeah, hopefully they come back for this one.
Yeah.
All right, on to the next quote.
The more people don't watch the games, their viewership plummets, their agendas don't get to everyone, their ratings stagnate, and they will have control.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, it's a mind game. Once they have control of your mind, they have control over you. I guarantee you. Try and go 5 days without sports. You won't be missing out on anything. I mean, technically, like, obviously sports don't have, like, a real true bearing on my life. But, like, I'd be sad.
Yeah, like I thoroughly enjoy sports, you know?
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't want to not have it.
Yeah, like, I could go 5 days without it.
Easily.
But, like...
Have gone 5 days without it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not like I'm going to suffer withdrawal. Like, it makes
Yeah.
it seem like we're all, like, addicted to sports.
Yeah, like, we need our sports.
Which
Like,
is...
Like, we do, but, like, not that badly.
Yeah, but, like, we don't need our sports. Like, it feels like he's, like, talking like how I inject sports balls into my vein. Like, that's just not what's happening. The culture loves sports. Culture has always loved sports for thousands of years.
Yeah.
The sports evolve, obviously, but it's just a very important part, competition of human culture.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
And I think a pretty friendly part, too.
Yeah, I mean, it's a friendly way to get out aggression and, like, a happy, friendly way.
Yeah, I guess so, in a happy, friendly way.
Happy, friendly way.
That's how I would, that's the descriptor I'd apply to all NFL players. Happy and friendly.
Happy, friendly. I would definitely go as far to say friendly.
I hope they're happy. They're getting paid millions of dollars to play a sport, a game.
Yes, that's true.
That doesn't mean I'm not super jealous of them, though.
Oh, every single second.
He ends the video by letting us in on this nugget of confidential information.
Now that we've made it to this point in the video, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. The NFL is rigged. We know.
Yeah, we know. So obviously it's
That's not,
unsurprising.
like, I mean, how are you gonna get to that point in the video and have not already come to that conclusion? Like if you're watching that far, you do believe the NFL is rigged already.
Or you're watching it like I do, like kind of in a hate-watching way.
Yeah, exactly. Where you know that the NFL isn't rigged, but you know that people think that it is.
I just think it's an incredibly redundant point. Like,
Yeah.
you're watching a video about how they are using gloves to rig games, and then he has to end the video being like, shh, just so you know it's rigged. Like, obviously, bro. I
Yeah,
watched the
like-
first 10 minutes of your video.
Welcome, listeners.
Scratch it.
Welcome, listeners, to my segment of the podcast. And this week, I wanted to tell you that I've been doing some tracking.
You've been doing some tracking.
Tracking, yes. I saw this video in the very beginning of October, before any NFL football games had been played. And so with this video, you will see why and what I have been tracking.
All right.
I don't know how do you look for? I don't know how I forgot, but it's officially Kirktober. Essentially, where Kirk Cousins turns into a top 5 quarterback for 4 to 5 weeks. Last Kirktober, we saw him go 4-1, 9 touchdowns, 1,200 yards. Very good. He lived up to standards. During his tenure with the Vikings, he was 15-5 during October. It's a 75% win rate. In his career stats in October, 11,000 yards, 71 touchdowns, 33 picks. Great ratio, tons of yards, 98 passer rating. The NFL made a great decision by opening up Kirktober with Kirk and the Falcons against a red-hot Baker Mayfield and the Bucks. Now, I know this isn't like a real thing, but I'm definitely going to be watching this game, specifically watching Kirk Cousins being like, I wonder if he looks a little better than usual. The numbers don't lie. He really does go off in October, so tonight's the first test.
Okay, I just want to say, when this guy posted the video saying like, okay, I want to see how Kirk Cousins does tonight. I saw this before that Bucks game. So I didn't know how well he was going to play either, but like I was keeping in my mind. I was like, okay, going into this, I'm going to watch to see if Kirktober is actually a thing.
And how did he play?
He fucking torched Tampa Bay, which was easily possibly one of the best games of his career and by far one of the best games we've seen so far this season.
I think it might have been my favorite game to watch this season. It was so entertaining.
For those who aren't football fans or those who didn't
catch the game, yeah.
For those who didn't catch the game, here's Kirk Cousins threw 500 yards,
what?
4 touchdowns, and only had 1 pick. And just to give you a little context in that 500 yards, his longest throw was only for 45.
So it's not like this is just made up of super long Hail Marys they got lucky on.
He went 42 for 58.
42 for 58.
Yes.
That's incredible. The fact that he even had 58 throwing attempts is insane.
Yeah.
And the fact that he made 42 of them, like, that's unheard of.
Yeah, and the Falcons ended up beating my Buccaneers in overtime.
Yeah, it was a good game.
Yeah, so 1-0 this October. Then you have his game against Carolina.
Okay.
Where he did get the win, so you can give him the 2-0, but his stats weren't as good. 225 passing yards, 1 TD, 0 interceptions, 19 for 30. Like, not crazy stats. But, like, mid-quarterback Kirk Cousins stats.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, that's kind of what I expect from Kirk Cousins.
Yeah. In the 3rd week of October, he lost to the Seahawks. So he's 2-1 this October.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah, and his passing stats, 232 yards, nothing crazy. 1 TD, 2 interceptions.
Okay, so that's a pretty tough game, yeah.
Yeah, and 24 for 35.
Yeah, not a spectacular game by any means.
Yeah, and then
he lost.
And he lost. And then finally, we have the Falcons played the Bucks again to end off the month.
Indeed.
And the Falcons beat the Buccaneers again by 1 score. And Kirk Cousins, although he didn't go quite as off in his yards, where he only threw 276, he had 4 touchdowns and 0 interceptions.
Okay, so a pretty incredible game. The yards don't really tell the story.
Exactly. The yards don't tell the story, the touchdowns do. So if we do some very, very quick math, he had 10 touchdowns and 3 interceptions for
the month of Kirktober.
For the month for this Kirktober, which is pretty good.
I would say that's pretty solid and almost certainly above what he usually is doing in an average month.
Yes, exactly. And then his yardage total, he hit 1,242 yards over a 4-game span. So if you want to 4-game span it, he had an average of 300 yards per game. But he did throw a lot of those yards in one game. But still, crazy yard total. Good ratio.
Great month.
I would say Kirktober lives to see another year.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I would definitely not deny that, especially considering like that one stellar game, 500 plus yards.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
You never ever see that.
No.
It kind of reminds me of Josh Allen being undefeated on Thursday. Like, it's just like these weird little quirks. Or like back when also the Falcons were undefeated in preseason for like...
No, that was the Ravens.
Oh, the Ravens. Yeah, the Ravens were undefeated in preseason for years.
They had like a 4 or 5 year unbeaten streak.
Which is hilarious, because who cares about preseason?
Completely meaningless,
exactly.
But hilarious.
And also just an additional comment on this video, I like that creator. He seems like I get along with him. He's like laying out some crazy stats, and then at the end he's like, I don't think this means anything, but I'm certainly going to be watching. I could not relate more.
Yeah, no, he's a dope guy. I get a lot of content from him. So, well, not a lot, but I get some content from him.
What's his name? We should plug this boy.
He's from the Bali podcast, Lucas Barbu.
All right.
Barbo. I don't know. It's some Falcons. He's a Falcons fan. He does Falcons broadcasting, so of course he's going to be the one who knows about Kirktober.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah.
I'm glad we gave him the shout out. I think he deserves it. This is some good stat gathering.
Yeah, good shit.
Reminds me of like John Boyce's stuff. Like, this is exactly what I want to see in the world. Thank you for listening to this week's episode.
You can find us on Twitter at FB Conspiracies, where we will post all the graphics and links we spoke about during this episode.
You can also reach us by email using fbconspiracies@gmail.com.
A special thanks to Blaze for the music.
If you enjoyed, consider leaving a review.
Join us next week for more football conspiracies.
Fuck me, what a tongue twister.